If she's ignoring you, stop texting her. Seriously. The more you chase someone who is pulling away, the more you push them away. But here's what most people don't understand. Silence can completely change the dynamic. In this video, I'll show you exactly what to do when she stops replying, starts acting distant, or suddenly loses interest, without begging for attention or losing your self-respect. Stay until the end because the last step is the one most people get completely wrong. When you keep texting her again and again, especially when you are not receiving the same level of effort in return, you can slowly lose something far more important than her attention: your own emotional balance. You start checking your phone repeatedly, wondering why she has not replied, thinking about what you said wrong, and creating explanations for every small change in her behavior. This is where you need to pause. Instead of immediately sending another message, give yourself the opportunity to observe what is actually happening. Sometimes you do not need more communication to understand a situation. You simply need enough space to see it clearly. When you stop chasing, you are not trying to manipulate her or make her feel desperate for your attention. You are simply removing yourself from the position of constantly proving your interest. There is a major difference between showing genuine interest and continuously pursuing someone who is giving you very little in return. If you are always the person starting the conversation, asking questions, keeping the conversation alive, and finding reasons to reconnect, you may never discover whether she would naturally make an effort without you pushing the connection forward. Stepping back allows her behavior to become visible without your constant involvement. Pay attention to what happens when you are no longer doing all the work. Does she notice your absence? Does she reach out on her own? Does she ask how you are doing? Does she try to continue the connection? Does she make an effort to spend time with you or keep the conversation meaningful? These actions can tell you much more than trying to analyze the timing of every message. Someone's genuine interest is usually reflected through consistent behavior, not just occasional words that keep you hopeful. And this is where emotional strength becomes important. You have to become comfortable with not knowing immediately what she's thinking. You do not need to send another text simply because you feel uncomfortable with the silence. You do not need to create a reason to contact her just because you miss the feeling of being noticed. Learn to sit with that feeling without allowing it to control your behavior. The moment you stop reacting to every emotion with another message, you begin developing self-control. Observing also means looking at the bigger picture instead of focusing on one conversation. One delayed reply does not automatically mean someone has lost interest, and one enthusiastic message does not automatically mean they are deeply invested. Look for patterns, look at consistency, look at whether her actions match her words. Most importantly, notice how you feel within the connection. If you constantly feel anxious, uncertain, and responsible for keeping everything alive, that feeling deserves your attention, because a connection should not require you to abandon your own peace just to keep it going. When you decide to stop texting her constantly, understand what you are actually doing. You are not creating silence to punish her, make her jealous, or force her to chase you. You are creating space because healthy connections need room to breathe. There is a difference between disappearing as a tactic and stepping back with emotional maturity. If your only reason for going quiet is to make her panic and wonder where you are, then you are still allowing her reaction to control your behavior. Real confidence comes from being able to step back without needing a specific response from her. Sometimes you become so focused on maintaining communication that you forget how natural connection is supposed to feel. You send a message, wait for the response, notice that the reply is shorter than usual, and immediately send another message to bring the energy back. Then you begin asking questions, explaining yourself, or trying harder to keep her interested. But when you constantly fill every quiet moment, you never give the other person the opportunity to decide whether they want to reach out on their own. Space can reveal what pressure hides. You also need to understand that silence does not automatically mean rejection. People have responsibilities, emotions, routines, and personal situations that have nothing to do with you. The mature response is not to create dramatic assumptions. Instead, allow things to unfold naturally. If she is interested, she may eventually initiate a conversation, ask about you, or find a reason to reconnect. If she does not, you gain information that would have been difficult to see while you were constantly pushing the interaction forward. The most important thing is what you do with that space. Do not sit there staring at your phone and counting how many hours have passed. Do not post things simply to get her attention. Do not send indirect messages designed to make her curious. Do not turn your silence into another form of chasing. Use that time to return your attention to your own life. Work, exercise, friendships, hobbies, learning, goals, and personal growth should continue whether she texts you or not. There is something powerful about becoming comfortable with unanswered questions. You do not always need immediate reassurance. You do not need to know exactly what she is thinking at every moment. You can care about someone while still allowing them freedom to choose their level of involvement. When you stop trying to control the outcome, your communication becomes more genuine because you are no longer speaking from fear. You are speaking because you actually have something meaningful to say, not because you are desperate to keep the connection alive. When you stop texting her constantly, the biggest mistake you can make is spending that newly created space thinking about her even more. You may put your phone down, but your mind is still waiting for a notification. You may tell yourself that you are focusing on yourself while secretly checking whether she has viewed your message, wondering why she has not reached out, and imagining what she might be thinking. That is not real detachment. Real growth begins when you take the attention you are constantly giving to her and intentionally redirect it toward your own life, your own goals, and the person you are becoming. Your life should never become smaller because someone has entered it. You should not abandon your ambitions, routines, friendships, interests, or personal standards simply because you are interested in someone. Attraction can be exciting, but when it becomes the center of your emotional world, you begin depending on another person's attention to determine how you feel about yourself. One message can make you feel incredible, while one unanswered message can completely change your mood. That emotional dependence creates pressure, and eventually you may find yourself living around someone else's availability instead of building a life that genuinely fulfills you. Start putting your energy into things that make you respect yourself. Work towards something meaningful. Improve your skills. Take care of your appearance and your environment. Exercise, read, build your career. Spend quality time with people who genuinely appreciate your presence. Develop hobbies that make you lose track of time. Set goals that have nothing to do with relationships. The purpose is not to become busy just so she notices that you are unavailable. The purpose is to become engaged with your own existence again. There is also a difference between being interested in someone and needing their attention. You can enjoy talking to her without needing to talk every hour. You can appreciate her presence without making her responsible for your happiness. You can hope that the connection develops while still accepting that your life continues regardless of what happens. That emotional independence changes the way you communicate because you are no longer approaching every interaction with the fear that one wrong move could make her disappear. When your attention returns to your own life, you also become better at recognizing what you genuinely want. You begin noticing whether you actually enjoy the connection or whether you are simply addicted to the uncertainty surrounding it. You start asking better questions. Is there mutual effort? Is there respect? Is communication natural? Do you feel peaceful around this person, or are you constantly trying to earn their attention? These questions matter because your goal should not simply be to make someone interested in you. Your goal should also be to determine whether this connection deserves your time and emotional energy, and whether the life you are building still feels meaningful, even when your phone remains completely silent. When you genuinely like someone, it is easy to become overly generous with your attention. You start initiating every conversation, responding instantly, making plans, asking questions, checking in, and constantly looking for ways to keep the connection alive. At first, this may feel natural because you are excited and interested, but over time, if the effort is consistently coming from only one side, you can create an unhealthy dynamic where you are doing everything while simply hoping for a similar response. This is why learning to match effort matters. It is not about becoming cold or calculating. It is about recognizing whether the connection has enough mutual interest to grow naturally. Matching effort does not mean counting the exact number of messages she sends compared with yours. It does not mean waiting exactly 10 minutes before replying because she took 10 minutes to respond. That turns communication into a competition, and genuine connection should never feel like a mathematical equation. Instead, look at the overall pattern. If you regularly initiate conversations, does she sometimes initiate them too? If you suggest meeting, does she also make plans? If you ask questions about her life, does she show curiosity about yours? If you are always finding ways to maintain the connection, what happens when you stop carrying it for a moment? One of the most important lessons is that overgiving can sometimes hide the truth. When you are constantly putting energy into the connection, you may never discover how much energy the other person would naturally contribute. Your effort can keep something alive that would otherwise slowly disappear. Stepping back does not destroy a healthy connection. It simply gives both people room to participate. If she genuinely wants the connection, she has an opportunity to demonstrate that through her own choices and actions. You also need to stop believing that giving more will automatically make someone value you more. More texts do not guarantee more attraction. More compliments do not guarantee deeper feelings. More availability does not guarantee greater commitment. In fact, when you repeatedly give more than you receive, you can end up feeling emotionally exhausted and resentful. You may begin thinking, after everything I have done, why is she still not giving me what I want? But the better question is whether you should have been giving so much before receiving evidence of mutual interest. Healthy connection requires reciprocity. Both people should have opportunities to initiate, contribute, communicate, and make the relationship meaningful. You should be able to show interest without feeling that you must constantly prove your worth. And when you notice that the effort is consistently unequal, do not immediately increase your effort in an attempt to compensate. Take a step back, observe the pattern, and allow the other person to reveal what they are genuinely willing to contribute. Sometimes the hardest part of stepping back is accepting that you may finally see the answer you are trying to avoid. When you stop sending message after message, stop creating reasons to start conversations, and stop doing all the emotional work, her actions become easier to understand. You no longer have to keep guessing based on a single reply or analyzing every word she sends. You can simply observe what she chooses to do when you are no longer pushing the connection forward. This is where clarity begins, because actions often reveal what endless conversations can hide. If she genuinely wants to stay connected, she has the freedom to show it. She may reach out first, ask how you are doing, continue a previous conversation, suggest meeting, or simply make an effort to remain part of your life. You do not need to instruct her to do these things. You do not need to remind her that you exist. You do not need to create jealousy or make her feel guilty. When someone values a connection, their interest usually finds some natural way to express itself through consistent effort. At the same time, do not become obsessed with looking for signs. One message does not prove deep interest, just as one quiet day does not automatically prove rejection. Look for patterns instead of isolated moments. Anyone can be enthusiastic for a day. Anyone can send a thoughtful message occasionally. What matters is consistency over time. Does the effort continue? Does communication feel mutual? Does she make room for the connection? Does her behavior generally match what she says? These are much more meaningful questions than wondering why she replied with one word or took several hours to respond. You also have to be willing to accept an answer that you may not like. If you repeatedly step back and there is no effort from her side, do not keep finding excuses for the lack of interest. You do not need to convince yourself that she is secretly waiting for you to text again. You do not need to create complicated explanations simply because accepting reality feels uncomfortable. Sometimes the absence of effort is information. It may not tell you everything about her feelings, but it can tell you that the level of investment is not matching what you are giving. This is where self-respect becomes more important than getting the outcome you wanted. You cannot control another person's feelings, timing, priorities, or choices. What you can control is how you respond to what their behavior shows you. If the connection is mutual, allow it to develop naturally. If the effort remains one-sided, give yourself permission to stop investing so heavily. Walking away from an unbalanced dynamic does not mean you failed. It means you recognize that your emotional energy deserves somewhere it can be received, appreciated, and returned.